Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is David Paskin, and welcome to Synagogue Tech Forum. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues, and I'm making sure that everything is actually streaming, and we are streaming. My name is David Paskin, and welcome to Synagogue Tech Forum. Let me turn.
We're hearing it come back in.
Colleagues, you're hearing come back. That's because it started playing high. Well, sorry, and we are streaming. My name is going. Oh my Lord! I got YouTube everywhere. It's all playing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Synagogue Tech Forum. I'm so excited to be with you all again on this last show before the brand new year. Please God, it should be a healthy year, a good year, a joyful year, and a year in which all of our tech allows us to reach ever higher and achieve greatness. So let's do the go around. Let's just all say hello to everyone. I'm David Paskin. You're from Miami, Florida. You're Torah Tech Guy. Happy to be here. Tobias, say hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tobias Moss in Minneapolis, where I'm a rabbi of a large synagogue here, Temple Israel, and it's going to be negative 15-ish when the ball drops. So looking forward to that.
That's insane. Oh my goodness. Leo.
Hi, I'm Leo Mindel from Pinner in the UK. I get involved in helping various different synagogues set up their live streaming, as well as helping other Jewish organizations stream their live events around the world.
It is,
and there's no ball dropping in the UK.
No ball? You all don't have a ball there? What dropped?
We don't have a ball. Nothing. We have Big Ben. It's a big clock that goes dying. That we don't. We've been doing it for a lot longer than balls dropping.
Gotcha. It is so good to have you back, Leo. Good to have you back. Marty.
It's good to be here.
Hey, David. Hi, everybody. This is Marty Atias from Silver Spring, Maryland, and I'm an audio-video broadcast engineer and host of the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum. So glad to be here.
Really, really nice to see you. Michael, hello, how are
like
you?
59 degrees or something ridiculous like that. And it's
50. It's skiing weather. Michael, how you doing?
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Kyer. I'm up here in Olympia, Washington, way up in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a nice snow sandwich going on. We had about 8 inches of snow, a little bit of ice, and another little bit of snow on top of that. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm a streamer. I stream. I help people stream. I've been working with my church streaming since the beginning of quarantine. So I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So glad that you're here. And James from Dublin, how are you?
Oh, there we go. Hello. I'm James Hutchinson. I'm coming to you from Dublin in Ireland, where today has been mostly just wet, which is how we would describe our winters, generally speaking. I have a general interest in faith streaming, so that's why I'm here today.
Amazing. It's really nice to have you, and welcome to, and welcome to everybody who's watching either now or after the fact. If you have thoughts, if you have questions, if you want to see us talk about certain things in future episodes or even today, please put those in the chat. We'll be monitoring them. And if you're watching after the fact, we'll still come back to those chats and look at those questions and thoughts. So it's a new year, which means new tech. Now, not just toys, not just technical toys, but what new technologies, what new tools can enrich the sacred work that we're trying to do in our synagogues, in our Jewish community centers, in our educational institutions, and by extension, in all of our religious places of worship, right? What are the sort of the key things that maybe we have already discovered, or maybe that we haven't yet discovered, that we're looking forward to discovering in the new year? That's where I'm going to be. The thing that I'm looking forward to is, it doesn't exist yet, but it's something I'm looking forward to. So what I guess we'll do is just kind of go around, and I'll invite each of you to share your thoughts, your sort of dream piece of technology, your dream tool that really can enrich the work that we're doing. And then by all means, let's engage with one another in conversation, and keep an eye on that chat to bring in other voices. So who should I pick on first? Michael, you want me to pick on you first? Because you wrote something in the Discord, which I really loved.
Yeah, sure. I can do that real quick. So for me this year, we've been working with video conferencing and streaming. And one of the things we've always had a problem with is getting folks engaged with it, getting them onto whatever platform we're using, whether it's Zoom or that type of thing. And in the last year or so, as we've developed all the different platforms, there's a new, well, it's not totally new, but it's a new way to engage video, and that's to use your web browser, all your little drivers in your web browser. So you're not downloading an extra piece of software. And so WebRTC, for real-time communication, is what this stuff is called. And there's all sorts of these little different platforms popping up that are very easy to use. The bar of entry, if you will, is as minimal as you can get. You have to put your name in, you take a little quick snapshot of yourself, and you give it permission to use your microphone and your camera. And so not having to download that, not having that extra piece, that extra step to have our folks jump through, I think is really going to help a lot with creating all of that, those communities and those, what we talked about earlier, those serendipitous moments that happen naturally. And so what this does is it gives you a canvas of your little avatar, your little icon that you can drag around. And then when you get near somebody, that video pops up. So you can cluster a little group over here or cluster a little group over here. And that transitioning between back and forth is the part that's so much simpler. This is
a specific example you're mentioning, Michael?
I've got two examples that I'm familiar with, Topia.io and then Wonder.me. And they're both similar. They both kind of look the same. And then I can do a screen share of those if just to give a quick picture of them, just so you can see what I'm talking about. But so that's all it looks like. That's just a basic. You've got a couple little different areas. I've got my little icon right here that I can drag around. And so when I come into proximity to somebody else, my little video is going to start up. And then I can have that audio, that video, right? And then that's Andrew. And I can drag away from Andrew or, go back to that. That was a pre-recorded video. But all of these sites are essentially the same. You've got this very simple user interface. You can move your person around. This would be, like a breakout room in Zoom. It's very similar. And then Topia is the same general thing. It's very similar. You can add an image to the background or little, cartoon things to kind of make that a little bit nicer looking. But they're both essentially the same. And they're a little bit more limited than Zoom. They don't have quite the same robust presentation, controls in there that you would have with some of your more dedicated broadcasting software. But as far as a very easy way to get some folks on into a video environment, this is something that I think really has a lot of potential in the coming year.
Michael, I see a question coming in from a often panelist, Rabbi Milstein, of whether this works on phones or tablets, these kinds of platforms, or whether you'd have to have someone coming in from a computer.
Right. So last year when Wonder was going through their initial buildup of this, it was only available on Chrome and I can't remember. I think it might have only been available on Chrome. And so it was not available on your mobile devices to begin with, but they're building towards that. And part of it has to do with the limitations of the drivers within your browsers. So they're trying to, gradually build into those additional platforms. So at this point, depending on which platform you're looking at, whether it be Wonder or Topia, they are limited to some degree as far as mobile.
And by the way, I was leading a service, I think it was last year, and I had found one of these. I think back then I was using spatial.chat before I found wonder.me. And after the service that we did in Zoom, I invited everyone to join me in this new space where we could all move around. And it didn't dawn on me that the vast majority of my participants and my congregants were using an iPad to join our service. And so that immediately left them out of this experience. They are getting better. These sites are getting better at the mobile experience. I'll just throw in one more, Michael, that I've been using a little bit. It's called Reslash, app.reslash.co. And what I did is I actually just in Canva created this background. So I made an area for just schmoozing, an area for lounging around, an area for cafe. What you showed in the different zones that some of these things use, they're nice, but they're also limited. You can't sort of customize where those zones are. And if you do create a background, you can't necessarily say, I want this zone to be in this part of my room. So instead of using the zones feature, I just did this. And what I'll do is I'll have everyone come in and I'll make an announcement that says, hey, everybody, come on over to the what do you call it? To the lounging around area. One of the things I like about this is that you can actually see, I don't know how well that comes through, but you can kind of see your radius of how people are going to hear you when you get closer to them by just hovering over your icon. So you can move yourself around, you can zoom in or out, to go around and see the different space that you're in. And then I could say to my students, which I have in the past, all right, you three, why don't you go over to the cafe and work on X, Y, and Z? You two, why don't you head over to the just schmoozing area and we'll stay here. And then they can go there. I can still know that everyone's in their right areas, but I can't hear them because they can only hear themselves. And of course, on these, the video also pops up on most of these when you're in proximity to people.
David, with when you've done it with students, you mean younger folk or adult students?
These were middle school.
And did they hop to it? Did they understand the system pretty intuitively, or did it take some?
No, they pretty much figured it out. They pretty much figured it out. Different systems work differently. I don't remember if it's in Wonder or Spatial Chat where you don't actually drag your icon, you just point to where you want to go and then your icon moves over there. So they work a little differently, the different systems. So you do have to get used to it. That's why I put on the whiteboard over here, sort of the instructions on how to navigate your way around. But it was, it was different. And that I think, especially for kids, who had been stuck in Zoom for so long, that just having something a little different felt good.
I've got a very similar one. I think we talked about this before, which is GatherTown, which I'll show you GatherTown really quickly here. Hopefully you can see it. So I did this for Reshet, which is a conference for youth leaders in there. So they open up, there's a help desk for them to be able to see things like the program. So you press X and you can actually see the menu. I haven't been in it for a while, so it's going to take a little bit of time to open up, but you can see, it tells you what the program was on the February. There we go. And then my icon, it's a while. So they walked around here, they walked into the actual conference center, and this is where it's really good. So you go into the conference center and the program is held in these different rooms. So if we go into, say, the learning loft, they go into the learning loft, and the minute you step onto these green seats, your audio, you can hear everybody who's in any of the seats. So the way they go up to the Q&A, the minute you stand on like a little microphone thing or a speaker, you're heard. So if you want to, if somebody wants to ask their question, they all have to line up and stand. The next person standing on there is the next person that can be heard in the room. So it's just, but the speakers all the time could be heard because they're standing. So, you've got 5 speaker slots in there. You can then say to them, go off in a breakout room. And again, you can see that as you see, I move to an area, the carpet changes slightly, anybody who's standing on that carpet with me hears me. So it's like, that's how you create the little room areas. And then when you're on the carpet, you can press X. This is the way you Don't know if it's going to come up with something that you don't want it to come up with. No, that one hasn't running. I don't know if any of these are still. It's a while since you saw. It's a while since I brought these up. No, they're not showing. But you can all share a whiteboard, which is actually a joint shared thing. So going back to the program, if you look, it said in the program that it starts off and it's like Horizons Hall. So the first track is in the Discovery, Den, Learning Loft, and Mind Expansion, Inspiration, and then you've got different tracks each all the way through the day. So you could spend the time in here, or you could go into the Inspiration room, which has got all of its breakouts, and it's there. And they're very similar rooms, all 4 rooms. I think though the big one is the Horizons Hall. Got big, where you've got many more people can sit in it, and they can, anybody sitting in this room, the minute somebody stands on any of those points, the whole room can hear. So you hear, everybody hears the people who are in the room. So we just built this, and it was hugely successful. And it'll be nice to see. It's built on that same technology that you were talking about earlier, Michael. And it'll be interesting to see the take. A lot of people of a certain generation didn't like the cartoon feel of it. That said, a lot of people of another generation loved the cartoon feel. So like David was saying, you've got to find your audience.
One of the things
seems like a great way to do like committee staff retreats, where you're going off for a day or two to plan the rest of the year. We do these retreats every once in a while. All the committees get together, or the staff, and they go off and they do a planning meeting once a year, or even for even just coffee hour after services.
Yeah, I agree, Marty, 100%. For a lot of different types of uses, one of the pieces of feedback that I got about these, and this was back when we had all been stuck in Zoom, was as much as being in Zoom felt stuck, it also felt familiar. And there's something to be said, as much as I'm all about change and growth and new things, a lot of people really just want to go to a safe place. And Zoom felt, I think, for a lot of people, like a safe place. I was able to just jump into Wonder. So this is Wonder. You can see I have the same exact background here, but it is different in the way it works. So I just want to show you, this is the one where you can see this is my icon over here, and you point to where you want to go and it follows your mouse. It'll also kind of scale the room around. And when you get close to someone, this is just a pre-recorded video, not a real person. It will bring up their video up on the top there.
Just so you know,
you can see this is a private circle. You can make it private or not private. They've really done a lot of work on these. I haven't been in these for a while. You can chat with everyone. You can chat with everyone in your circle. You can do a private chat to individuals. These are really neat platforms. One of the things that, Leo, you made me think about was that there are a lot of people for whom having their video on all the time is something they don't want to do. They struggle with that. And so using something like Topia or Gather.town allows them to be present. So sort of feels a little metaversy, right? Where we have avatars as opposed to our own people. But
exactly.
Yeah,
one of the things that was also we found with GatherTown, as just last bit I'll show you, is that when we were doing it, we started by having Havdalah on the beach. So for those that don't know what we're talking about having a candle lighting festival at the end of Shabbat, and we did it on the beach, and we were having everybody came on the beach. They did the Havdalah there. A few of them went swimming because you can go swim in there. You can get on the little podium and swim across, and it just breaks the ice of suddenly giving you that ability, because there's a lot of places in this you can walk around. There's even things they've built it all for you in GatherTown, but you've got arcade games that you can play. You can open this up. This gate, as soon as you press X on here, you've got like a Pictionary game. I don't know. So I'm just going to start it so you can see. No, it's not going to start. It's a while since I've used them all. So there's lots and lots of features, and it enables people to. It's quite fast how certain people can react and understand the difference of that. They can put themselves in that. They can make the gap on that 2 dimension to where they are in their life and things, and how to interact. And you do get used to it. It's quite amazing to see people who will spend quite a lot of time in there, and they'll see people come in and they'll walk off to a corner, and it's just that natural. They walk exactly. It literally works the way that our brains work. We sort of like, you're sort of like, you can see that they just nudge themselves off to one side to go. It's like walk out of that conversation, but it's good. It's good. And we're down to use it for. Reshet want to use it for their event next year as well. So,
that's great.
Nice.
But it's great things, these, Michael.
Yeah. Just to synthesize this, and I think, right, I think when we first got into this era, we thought the most important thing a synagogue does is services, and clergy and staff poured a lot of energy into figuring that out. And there's still more energy to give to that. But I think a lot of these resources are probably not for services on a traditional basis. Like David said, people want familiarity, and Zoom has gotten there. But for all the other things that a synagogue does, which we know are so core, and we haven't fully replaced when we have to be online, or all the different ways that things are playing out right now, these could be great tools for youth group, for camp. I love the staff retreat idea, because also that's enough time to like learn a new platform and feel comfortable with it if you're really on it for 2 work days straight or whatever. So I think as we think about all the other things the synagogue does besides services, live streaming, and Zoom, that makes a lot of sense.
Tobias, I think you've hit on something really important there that I didn't realize, and thank you for mentioning it. Youth clubs. Most synagogues in the UK have been running youth clubs for a long time. And, they come and wane, and, just chill out times, not massively programmed, not heavily programmed, but stuff that young people can do. And they're not happening. And it's like, you say that we're meeting in Gathertown, and it doesn't have to be every week. It can be once every 2 weeks or whatever, or every 3 weeks. And you can there's ways to arrange pizza to be delivered, etc. And it's just fun. It's just use the computer for fun in a semi-religious environment. But, just do that, because these kids are going to have missed out. That's the bit that you suddenly work out. They just never did that bit. They never did the chill out bit.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, so much. Wow.
Oh, you're welcome.
Leo, do you want to share with us what
Sure. So I'm going to go a bit more technical in a way, but I'm just going to cover something, and which is, my big thing this year, really, if you say to me, I just go up. I want us to go up. I want us to not be a novelty. I want us to be mainstream, that what we're doing is seen as the real deal. And there are ways to do that. I want to get past that. Well, we're just connected and it works, and aren't we clever because we connected? And I want to start saying that has to stop. We have to start looking better, sounding better, acting better. And there's lots of things on there. And one of the big things I have, and I've shown these pictures before, I've shown this on here before, and I've gone straight in. I'm literally on a synagogue at the moment, and I'm looking at their setup for vMix. And my wish is that everybody that does their live streaming stops using OBS and starts using vMix. And there are lots of reasons for it, but the key thing is that the look and the feel of your live stream will look better. On the right hand side, you're looking at the live event, and you can see that it's got branding on it. You can see that it looks nice. Now, you may turn around and say, but that doesn't look like a synagogue. It doesn't look all crappy and broken-y. And it's like, yeah, but why do we have to do that? Why do we have to always look? Sorry, that camera's turned off because the curtains are closed. Why do we have to look like that? Why can't we look really, really good? And the big difference is that you've got to get something like vMix, and it does cost money, but so does painting the walls in the synagogue, so does having lighting, so does actually turning the heating on so that it's not freezing cold. Although I think there's lots of women's galleries at certain synagogues that think it's supposed to be freezing cold. And I want it to be good. And I think investing in time and effort and to go into this sort of movement so that you can actually sit there and play videos. And I'm just going to pick up a video here and I'm just going to cut that across, and it just plays the videos that you've got, and it's got all the liturgy is on the left hand side, and you've got everything in there. I just want to be looking at that in the future rather than just looking at what some of the things we see at the moment.
Leo, I just had a conversation literally about an hour ago with the rabbi here. I'm standing in for the cantor, and he and I are going to be, the rabbi and I are going to be leading services this Shabbos. And I made the mistake a few weeks ago in a board meeting of suggesting that services were boring. And so he said to me, "You're here this weekend. What do you want to do? Let's do something different." And we use vMix. And the first thing I realized is that we are limited in how we can get creative in physically with, moving around, being in different places because of the way vMix is set up. Now, we could go in and we could change vMix. We can pan, tilt, zoom the camera. We could do all that. The only thing I want to share is that when you're doing these setups, don't set it up for this is how our service is going to look, even if it's pretty. Create a system, build a system, and vMix is a great example of a system that is infinitely scalable. It can be changed, it can grow, it can move, you remote in like Leo was just doing, because hopefully our services and our offerings will continue to change and grow and be more dynamic, and we want our systems to do that. So for all the synagogues that just kind of plunked a few high-end cameras in and then just have them statically looking, it's really important to think about future-proofing and using tools that allow you to be flexible. Okay.
I don't agree with the word future-proofing because I never agree with that word. It just doesn't exist. There's no such thing. But this is sort of thing when I have discussions with Marty, who's been doing this a lot longer and has got less hair than I have, about how the audio and video of these things has changed dramatically over the period of time. And in the time we all worked in this industry, TV production.
We're losing you, Leo.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just me, but we're losing your.
You're losing me. My internet's gone unstable, so let me just see why it's gone suddenly. I don't know why I've got my internet's gone unstable, but you look at what's happening in the future in there, and you look at how things have changed dramatically over the last X number of years. And that to me is where we're both going, and seeing how this whole stuff, we'll look back and we'll say, this is what we've done in 2 years. We've grown massively, but where we will be in 20 years is going to be even more, because it's a migration. I'm going to change cameras because I'm losing frames very fast.
Go for it. And I just, one of our, someone who's watching, Facebook user, we don't see your name, I'm sorry, says we use the PTZ presets rather than the vMix position so the scenes aren't anchored to specific camera angles. Yeah. So you can have that flexibility within vMix. You can have it within your PTZ camera setup. I only bring it up because, and I apologize for saying future-proofing. I only bring it up because, I wanted to suggest to the rabbi that we both sit together as opposed to stand behind the amud, behind the podiums. And I'm not a vMix user, so I don't know how to do that. And the guy who does know how to do that, the cantor, is the one who's away. So I guess moral of the story is have systems that are flexible, but also have people on your team who can share knowledge and allow, and have more people be engaged in knowing how to create those systems and use them to the best effect. Fantastic. All right. I'm an eCam guy, but I'll give vMix a thumbs up anyway. Now, Tobias, I'm waiting for you because I know you're an OBS guy. So Leo just told us all we're not allowed to use OBS. What do you say to that?
I will accept that I'm not married to OBS. It was just my first love. but it's a good experimentation place and has its use.
All right. There is someone is also saying here that they start from StreamSpot to OBS. They use the PTZ presets, only use OBS to change between cameras, right? Not sure if we can integrate vMix with StreamSpot. Real quick, Leo, can they integrate vMix with StreamSpot? My understanding is that they can.
Can't the question directly. Cannot remember.
We don't quite have Leo back, so why don't we try to come back to that?
So StreamSpot, as I understand it, StreamSpot, like Restream, is simply a way to in aggregate send your stream out. You should be able to, using either natively or using just RTMP, grab the information, the encoding information from StreamSpot, and then put that into vMix. So that should work. That should work. And I'm getting a head shake from a few people. So.
You're not hearing me.
Now you're still bopping in and out. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
David,
I'll
I
drop
believe
and come
that's
back.
true. Using vMix or OBS or Ecamm, you should be able to stream out to pretty much any platform, because most platforms are taking an RPMT stream, whether it's from a software streamer like OBS or vMix as a switcher, or even the ATEM Mini, which is a hardware switcher, or maybe you have a separate encoder, a little box. It's a hardware encoder, and that's what it does. It streams out to whatever service you want to use. So yeah, I would
Right.
say that can be easily done.
Yep. And someone on Facebook is also mentioning that they use Zoom and sets it to StreamSpot, or you could use vMix with StreamSpot. You just need the RTMP and the stream key. Awesome. Thank you. Tobias, let's jump back over to you. I'm sorry I interrupted you before. What's your tip or trick or tool?
Yeah, so I was, we talked about upgrading our tech or our tools, but a large part of that is what's inside of our Roche, inside of our head, our brains and our habits and ourselves. And so that's kind of what I want to start focusing on in this coming year, because I feel like for some people, this is still a brand new conversation. Some of us have been really exploring the tech stuff, and I feel like I've got the tech skills a bit, and now I want to figure out how do I kind of implement them and make them more universal and create an experience with them. So I'm thinking there's a kind of the expression of wetware, right? There's software, which is the stuff that's loaded on the hardware, but then wetware is what's in our brains. And I think we have to establish some norms and promulgate the norms we want to establish in our Jewish communities and how they interact online. So one version of that is if someone comes to your Facebook live stream of your service, comments, and no one comments back, then they understand the norm is, oh, this is not a place where chat happens. This is just a place to watch. I'm not going to chat anymore. Whereas if you see with either synagogues or churches that are responding, or other types of Facebook content where the comments seem so active, then the people come to realize, oh, this is a place to talk. And I think these ways of establishing habits are all throughout what we're doing. So, right, David, you mentioned that a lot of people don't like having their cameras on. But probably a big part of that, not the only part, there's lots of reasons why that is, but a big part of that is that their image has all the quality issues, and then it would make sense that wouldn't feel good to have that on, either because it's not professional, or because it's not attractive, or it's not as good as the person next to them. So that's why I think it's really important that we create ways of campaigning on how to do these things better for our congregants. I think a lot of our attention has been on our clergy and on our teachers, but I'm interested and to hear from the panel if you've seen this done. I remember seeing it at the beginning of the pandemic where people were circulating, 5 tips for a Zoom meeting or whatever, but kind of what's the next level of that? And another thing that I saw at different times in this period was, how do you create a sacred space at home if you're joining services from home, and suggestions to change the lighting or light a candle or, create. I imagine some religions have an easier time saying like build an altar in your home or that sort of thing. But I wonder what minhagim, what traditions we can come up with and promulgate to change our habits that make this a more dynamic experience. Michael, I saw your hand. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, real quick. That for me, a lot of it is our moderators, are the folks leading the discussion. Are the next step up for them is to really send that information out. Whether it's a small introduction at the beginning of what we're doing, or encouraging those chat messages, or whichever it is engaging those moderators, getting those moderators more comfortable with engaging with the video so that they can help guide the audience or the participants into those behaviors, into those habits of, hey, everybody, this is what we. I think that training those folks, getting those folks to step up to build their skills, public speaking, interaction, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think people really do, when there's clear messaging, people really take on new actions quite quickly. Just like in services, no one ever said to themselves, I'm going to train the congregation to bow with me at this moment. It just developed in the way that sacred ritual develops. And at the end of a lot of my classes with middle schoolers and whatnot, we end by doing a pound straight to the lens. And I imagine I'm the first teacher with them that suggested that. And the first one or two classes when I tried to end class that way, 3 fists flimsily went to the camera. But then they learn a new way of interacting, and they jump in, and it's ultimately, some people complain about standing and sitting and standing and sitting in synagogue, but it's much better than the alternative of being in one posture for the whole time. So I think teaching these little ways of engaging physically or with better camera, all that are really important. Anyone else? Yeah, Marty?
Are you hearing me again now? Am I back online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And now it says your connection is unstable again. But I think one of the things as I said earlier, Tobias, we're in a new world, and this new world isn't that old. And some of the traditions that we've learned and some of the things that we've been doing for a long time and learning how to do these things. And even if we take something really obtuse, like we say, how to sing We Will Rock You by Queen, you learn that, and it takes a while before the audience actually understands how to clap along to a song like that. And we have to learn these things, and it will take some time. And you're absolutely right. We're going to learn, and we're going to learn, and we're going to get better and better. And it feels wrong, but it will be a great experience when we get these things right and we work out how to bring those things together so that it becomes meaningful and inclusive and participatory rather than just a one direction push. Because if Queen could do it, so can we.
Yeah, learning these new techniques and ways of communicating with each other, ways of communing with each other, and this continuous dialogue that we have. Most people, or many people, not most, maybe, depending on the particular age group of your congregation, but some people have become familiar with social media and frequent social media for communications, for different topics or different areas or different interests. But I'm not sure. I don't know whether synagogues have embraced the concept of continuous communication with their congregations. I mean, you probably have a monthly newsletter, and you may have, probably at one point you printed it, and then maybe at some point you converted it to a PDF, and then you email it to your congregants. This is a really good way to keep your membership informed about what's going on in the church, but it's a one-way communication. There's no conversation going on, right? So through the use of threaded group conversation platforms like Google Groups or Groups.io or even Discord, you can have topic-driven or open conversation between congregants every day of the week, every hour of the day. If people want to get a referral for a physician, they can go onto your congregation's, listserv and ask, who knows a good physician? Or if you're looking for a baseball team for your child, or you just want to say, I need who's around I can talk to. I'm feeling lonely. We can have a conversation. These are incredibly powerful tools to not just create community, because you have community, but to enhance your community feel and your congregation's interaction with each other, and bring everybody closer together on an everyday basis.
Tobias,
that's really cool.
I just want to jump in and piggyback on that and then let you respond. Rabbi Leah is watching. Hi, Rabbi Leah. It's good to see you or hear you, or I see, hear, whatever, in comments in the chat, that because you've just raised the piece of this puzzle, which is allowing and empowering members of our community to communicate with one another. She's raising another important piece, which is clergy engaging, or leadership engaging with the chat, not necessarily during the service, but in follow-up after the services. I've said this a million times, that I've had the honor of sitting in on a few of the training sessions with Elevation Church, with their digital team, and they talk about how 80% of their work is not done during services on Sunday mornings. It's done after the fact. It's during during the week, when they are engaging with people, responding to comments, creating those groups, engage and facilitating those chats and those spaces. So thank you, Marty, and to Rabbi Leah for bringing that up. Sorry, Tobias, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just Marty, what you're talking about, I've only seen, and it's just my personal view, I've only seen it done once in synagogue communities that I've seen so far, of Rabbi Daniel Bogard in St. Louis made for his synagogue a Discord just for Intro to Judaism and conversion students. And he invited me into it as a fly on the wall for a day. And it was the most interactive congregant or would-be congregant space I've seen, both with like people sharing memes and just friendly content, getting to know each other, and then also asking questions about their learning and planning for upcoming holidays. And what was incredible about it, especially as a professional, is that the rabbi wasn't doing anything practically. It was, people were starting their own conversations and seeing them through, and I'm sure the rabbi dropped in and out of it and checked in on it, but basically it seemed like a congregant run space. And especially at bigger synagogues, maybe it's small synagogues too, but I've been at a synagogue like mine, which has a big professional layer to it. We get in the habit of providing programming to congregants, but creating opportunities for congregant engagement is key. Ends up being a difficult task. And so I'm really excited to mess with that option, creating a Discord threaded conversation platform for either subgroups of our congregants, or throw them all in and see what happens. Although I'm sure there's challenges along the way with moderation and stuff, but I'm excited to explore that.
Yeah, Rabbi Leah is using WhatsApp groups in to the same effect. I think Facebook groups are fantastic. Discord, in my community, we use Slack for our leadership. There are lots of different ways. And Marty, the way you brought this up about sort of the transition from the paper, what are they called, newsletters to a PDF to I think you're right. It's interesting that, Web 1.0 was very much about just getting information out there. Web 2.0 was very much about social, but a lot of us never got there. We're still living in Web 1.0, what I would consider Web 1.0, which is the internet is a place to send information out. It's to post a service, as opposed to really engage with people. And there are lots of tools to do that. Go ahead, please.
So David, would you argue then is what we're doing now, Web 3.0, this whole broadcast media, this interaction where you're actually live, because 2.0 was about live text, or, it's content on Facebook, and it was Twitter, and it's things like that. But with the advent of where we are with this, and where we are with Snapchat, and where we are with TikTok, and where we are with other things, where we're creating video in a highly customizable and live thing. I'm just throwing it out there, and maybe it's not a subject for now. Have we transitioned and moved into somewhere else? I'm really keen to hear this from Michael or James, who've got, who are real experts in sort of this sort of area.
James, what do you think?
Well, I don't think I would consider it to be Web 3.0, because that's more about decentralization, and the whole like NFTs would be very Web 3, which is a non-fungible token and stuff like that. But I think we're very much at the point where we're not fully in on Web 2 is probably more accurate, because it is about engagement, about that interaction and building community online. And that's something that I don't think faith has really embraced so much. They still see it as very much building based as opposed to an online base. Discord is really interesting. That was interesting to hear about how that's been used. Facebook groups obviously is another great tool, and WhatsApp is a particularly good one. But managing those groups is where it gets tricky, and they need to be monitored, and they need to be built with care, because otherwise you don't necessarily have a good group. I mean, there's a group that we're all involved with, probably, as you know, office hours, where they make it particularly difficult to become part of that community, and that difficulty is actually what makes the community stronger. And when it comes to faith, everybody has a different level, and there can be a danger involved when you do that online, and with something that you don't have the emotion attached as a text message. So I like the idea of interactions whereby they're moderated, and there's somebody who's bringing people along and forming those habits, good habits, healthy habits of how people can interact with each other. I particularly like that idea of the fist bump. Little things like that help to engage people and bring them and make them feel bonded together. And it's about building those bonds and building that community that I think Web 2 is very much, and I think that's still where we are today.
And I would argue, James, that what you were just talking about is the fundamental difference between a broadcast and a multicast, right? When we are simply sending a stream out to YouTube or Facebook, and no one is keeping an eye on the comments, and you haven't built into your system the capacity to bring comments in or something like that, and to respond to those comments, to call people out, to say, hey, it's so good to see so-and-so here. That's a broadcast. That's one way. It's not interactive. It's not engaging. Whereas what we're doing, and maybe this is partially going to what you were saying, Leo, is the piece of this maybe that's Web 3.0 is the decentralized part of this, is that we're all over the world right now. We are literally all over the world, that we are not in one place. We're not producing this in one place. The technologies that allow us to do this allow us to have a conversation and bring other voices that may not be here on camera on with us. And that, to me, is multicasting is particularly powerful. I will also just point out in response to what you said that I have already had to block a few comments in here. And so we need to start thinking as communities about staffing, about the priorities of our staff people. How are we going to appropriately staff the ways that we're pushing this engagement out and bringing people in digital space? We have to not only train our leaders and our rabbis to do that, but we also have to give them the time and the capacity to do that. Sorry, Tobias.
Michael, were you trying to jump in also?
Well, other than to say that to go back to the training the moderators, it's also the settings in there, the automatic filters for language, and so that's another step in this is back to the technical aspect of this. So as far in the front of things as we're thinking of things, a lot of folks are still just getting into this. And as they get into those spaces and they're building that, once you get a critical mass, that group starts to police itself. So in addition to the technical solutions we have to that, the group can start to say, hey, we're not going to, we don't want this behavior, or whichever it is. And so I think we're still very, very, very early in that. And that's why this type of guidance and bringing our, folks into it step at a time is critical.
I hadn't thought about it that way in terms of the fact that we are decentralized because it's global. It's actually an interesting way of looking at it. And in terms of the moderation and training of people, how to moderate is key to it, and to have consistency there. One of the things that we've always been doing since the very beginning with our service is that we allow comments to be seen as part of the service. And the next thing that I'd like to see that develop into would be where there might be some interaction, which would mean changing the ritual a little bit, that certainly is not something that the clergy are keen to embrace. But I think you can see when you have a moderator who responds to a message that somebody posts on Facebook, they will post more messages, and when they're doing that, they're engaged with your service, and that is very rewarding. And often it's not the messages and stuff that they're giving you are positive, and that brings, like, a big part of our service is music, and for music to be successful, you need to feed off the energy of your congregation. So I see that messaging as as close as we can get to getting that energy from the congregation.
Clergy are many things, but one of the main things they are communicators, right? I mean, what are you doing if not communicating, especially during service? And as James was just saying, who wants to stand up in the front of the room of people who are fidgeting and looking at their phones or doing their nails, or you want them to be engaged with you and what you're saying, right? Well, what we're talking about here is continuing that engagement throughout the entire week and finding the tools that best suit your population, and finding the people, the staffing, the volunteers who will make those tools work for you and keep everybody within the guardrails of what is acceptable behavior. But more important than that is finding ways to make the tools work. Like, for example, everybody knows Facebook, and Facebook, you can create a Facebook group for your congregation very easily, and many have done that. But Facebook groups in themselves are not very adaptable or configurable. I mean, it's like one long series of posts, and you really can't parse them out very easily into different conversations. With groups.io, and I don't know the one that Rabbi Leah was talking about, but I do know Discord very well.
Yeah, she just mentioned WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, yeah. I don't know that one. Discord, for example, is very easy to create very specific topical areas for conversation, and to control who can post in them and who can read in them. So you can have widely available topics. You can have topics that are strictly controlled for, say, just board members or just committee members or just staff. And so it becomes this one place where everybody can interact with each other in a very controlled way. And that's very, very powerful
That's
way
beautiful.
to communicate.
Yeah. I want to jump over, Marty, if you have something you want to share. But before we do that, Tobias, I just wanted to, you had talked also about helping not just us upping our game by creating more engaging, interactive experiences, but also the congregants upping their own game as far as the quality of their audio, the quality. And so what I oftentimes will have guests, in fact, you're coming on, Tobias, I don't remember when, I have guests come on my shows, and I have a get ready guide that I share with them. And I realized the other day that no one has read it. It's just too long. It's ridiculous. So what I did is I made just a one pager, and it didn't dawn on me until just now that this could be something that we could share with our congregants and maybe turn into a challenge, right? That the first thing that we have to pay attention to is the internet, and then audio. And I stole this right from Office Hours. This is not original, but there are 5 simple steps to making sure that everyone has the best experience in our services, because and that you look your best and sound your best. I don't know if you want to chime in on that at all, Tobias, but I didn't want to lose that piece of your tip and tool.
No, that's great and very important. And there's a lot of that stuff is low cost or no cost, and it's just knowledge. And also, I mean, this is something that goes way beyond just our religious communities, but also, kids at school. There needs to be major campaigns amongst parents and children to set them up for success, because so many kids are showing up on, not at a desk or all these basic things. And there's a big re-education and learning of just how everyone shows up in online spaces in a much more productive and it feels better as well to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you. Marty, did you want to share a tip or a tech or a tool or anything?
Yeah, a couple of things, actually. So on last week's Hybrid Ministries show, we talked about how you can use Stream Deck and Companion to automate a lot of processes for video web streaming. And I don't think that enough people have really explored that deep enough to really simplify all of the different things that need to happen during a service when you're trying to produce it for a webcast. A lot of people who have PTZ cameras have taken advantage of presets, but how do you access those presets? Is it a button on a screen that you have to find with a mouse and go through a menu? Is it a hardware piece where you have to push a button? How do you then switch from one camera to another? How do you mute and unmute channels on your audio mixer? How do you bring up graphics? How many different steps does it take to do each one of those things? And how many of those things do you need to do for a single transition from one segment of a service to the next segment of a service? And how can you reduce the number of push buttons or mouse clicks or moves or some to a bare minimum, and automate all of those things to maybe the push of one button, right? And how many different devices can you gain control over? And so with devices and software such as Stream Deck and Companion and others like Central Control or many others there that are fairly easy to use and may not even require you to buy hardware, just the software that you can load, create a push button pad on a tablet, right? So that you can program those buttons to do any number of steps. So that's something that I'd like to see more people look into, spend a little time researching, and it's worth spending the time to think about how to creatively use that. Tobias, what do you think?
So just to show, my Stream Deck is not loaded right now, but just so people have a visual of what Marty was mentioning, it's a little button pad that you can program each button to any sort of function, and then the button actually will have the text of what that does. So mute, unmute, spotlight the third camera on the right, or a million different customizable buttons. But what I've been kind of, and Leo, do you want to show yours as well?
Yeah, I'll give you Stream Deck Envy. I've got the bigger one. I've got the smaller one and there. And actually there's a comment from Rabbi Leah
I'll give you
also
a Stream
saying
Deck
that
envy. I got two big ones and a small one here.
Well, she was saying, Rabbi Leah was saying that, that Stream Deck with Companion has been her favorite tech of the year. It has with vMix as the driving, vMix is the bit that's the center, but the Stream Deck is the bit that actually drives everything. Everything that Marty has mentioned is true. The Stream Deck just changes the monotony of doing things, if I pronounced that correctly, so that you actually deliver and you don't worry about it. Pressing one button that starts a video, it plays that video, it mutes everybody that shouldn't be talking, it brings everything in, puts the cameras back to the right position so that when you come back everything's done, and then it comes out cleanly at the other end. Just takes all of that thought process, because you did it all in advance and you tested it and you got it ready, and then you can just say next week, oh, we'll replace that video with something else, and we've got it ready, and it just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to take a look at my screen, here is the Stream Deck. There's another thing there. Let me get rid of that.
We're seeing it.
Yeah. So there's the Stream Deck software, and it's a replication of the Stream Deck hardware. And you can see down. You can see down here once I get to it. Right there are a number of buttons down here. These are all different pages. On the Stream Deck, you can have 99 pages of buttons. And so that makes it extremely flexible. And you can have a button on a page that will bring you to another specific page. So you're not scrolling through every page to get to page 6. You can have a button that says page 6. Or you can say, this is my PTZ. All of my PTZ controls are on this button. So you push a button that says PTZ control, it takes you to that page. And you can put almost anything on these buttons. Down here on the right side is a list of things that you can control. So these are programs that are written by people or provided by the makers of Stream Deck, and these are functions. So for example, I can go to OBS Studio and I can drag this here and put it on a button, and now I can create, that button will change me to a specific scene if I wanted it to. I could do lots of different things here. And then Companion, on the other hand, okay, so this is what Companion looks like. It looks very much like a Stream Deck because you're creating buttons for the Stream Deck.
We're still seeing the Stream Deck profile.
Oh, right. I got to push that button there.
There you go.
So here's it looks very much like a Stream Deck because you're programming buttons for the Stream Deck, but there's a whole different set of things that you can control using Companion. And on the right here, and I'm just going to scroll through the A's, that's just the A's. These are all hardware pieces that you can take control over. And if I scroll down to the B's, you can see here are some of the Behringer mixers, Bird Dog cameras. You can go crazy all down here.
Marty,
all kinds of things.
I just want to jump in, and because you wrote me something earlier today, a pearl of wisdom that is just so important. I had been asking about a particular piece of technology and how simple it would be to implement for a synagogue. And Marty wrote me, simple systems can be complex to operate. Making a system simple to operate can be complex to set up. I don't know if that's you or if you got is Shakespeare, but you just nailed it. Is that a lot of, for me, I'll only speak for myself personally. I have not started using Companion and because it scares me. I feel like it's over my head. If I were to spend the time to learn it, the complexity of it, it would make what I'm doing so much more simple.
Absolutely.
And so for
Absolutely.
all of you like me who are afraid of some of this stuff, I feel you. I'm right there with you. And give yourself the time to learn these technologies, because even though they seem complex, they will simplify everything.
Yeah, and I think although Marty's showing this stuff, there's too much in there for today. It is complex to look at, but once you get one button done and once you work out how to use it on Companion, it will make a difference. But you're right. It's the absolute classic learning to fish or buying it from the fishmonger.
Yeah. And so the difference between the two, because people are probably wondering, well, Stream Deck or Companion, which one do I use? Well, they both work with Companion, but the software that comes with Stream Deck and all of the things that you can control, and I think Leo, you pointed this out. It was an observation that I hadn't even caught on to, was that all of the things you can control using the Stream Deck program and all those selections, those are softwares that reside on the computer that the Stream Deck is connected to via a USB connector. Companion, on the other hand, controls hardware that can be anywhere on your network, which makes it very powerful. So you can control things on a different computer. You can control an audio mixer. You can control a video switcher. You can control a lighting system. You can control pretty much any of the hardware, including other computers, on your network. And one other very cool thing about Companion is you don't need a Stream Deck to use it, because you can create a button pad on a tablet or on your desktop. So these are all live buttons. If I were to press one of these things, it would work, right? So you don't need the hardware to actually use it. So the other thing that I wanted to mention,
Before you jump ahead, Tobias, did you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah. This is something I hope gets out to a broader audience, because I know we talk very deeply into the tech, but some of the solutions are simple and some of the solutions have applications besides kind of the techie stuff. So for example, there's synagogues have a lot of older staff that don't adapt to the new technology all that well. And using something like a Stream Deck to program physical buttons for new functions that staff members have to take on. And that way they don't have to learn the 20 button clicks to be able to do various things. In fact, we have a staff member who just really didn't know computers at all going into when the pandemic started. And we've been needing to remote into their computer to start their Zooms and either leave their mic unmuted permanently or have someone still remoted in to help them unmute. And I just bought a USB foot switch, which is just meant to be clicked on by underneath your foot. I think David has a more complex one. So I have one that's literally just one button, and I'm going to program it to the Zoom unmute function and leave it on this person's desk. And that way they don't need an extra staff person facilitating their participation in a Zoom meeting. So that's kind of on one extreme. But then I also think of all the accessibility possibilities of using these more tactile devices to help people connect while they're in the building, or just letting parents know about them. Or I'm sure there's a lot of discussion of this in accessibility circles. But these tools are not just for like the cutting edge, how can I do the fanciest thing? It's also can be about finding the simplest, like we said, using complexity to get to the simplest solution in the end. So that I'm excited to explore that further.
That's great. That's great.
Exactly.
Marty.
And that's so not everybody has the background or the information or even the time to delve into some of these more sophisticated technologies that actually simplify our lives. I mean, you could build a computer but most people just buy one, right? So if you have a use and a need and a want to simplify your operations, you might want to find somebody to help you program it, because there can be a lot to go into it. It's not all that difficult, but it takes time to learn how to do it, and there are a number of steps that you need to accomplish to do it well, right? Like, for example, you push a button and it sends out a command to wherever. But once you've sent out that command, you might want to have some feedback from that device that the command was actually carried out, and see it on your Stream Deck. That's called feedback, and that needs to be programmed in as well. So when I push my button to mute my speaker, that button turns red, that it's muted, right? I know it's muted. Well, I can hear it too, but the point is that I can see it. So you can reach out to any one of us here on the panel who are capable of helping you with that and providing you with that service to make your operation simpler.
Right. David hasn't told me he'd charge me a penny, but I'm saving up thousands to ask him to set me up with the setup that he has when he comes into a call or a teaching, with your unique share screens and all of that. And I'm sure that took
graphics and such. Yeah.
Graphics took you hours and hours to develop and to learn how to develop it. But if a rabbi hired you or invited you to set that up for them, I'm sure, your expertise can now help others. And so I think we need what I'm curious about, Marty, and for the panel is, like, how do people don't even know who would they turn to make this happen in their institution better, where we consider hiring a production manager, but do we need a production manager, or do we need more IT? Or it's such a hard staffing thing. Do we need a consultant to come in and boost us? I mean, it's another conversation, I know, but we're in this new world, and there are both tools and experts, but many people don't know the tools nor the experts.
And you know what, Tobias, I think that a lot of synagogues are assuming that they have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the piece that's really riling me. I just met with a community the other day, and they have a smallish room, 20 by 40. It's sort of a boardroom. They do classes there. And they have a company that's coming in and installing a $15,000 system in this one room. With a switcher for $2,000 and 2 PTZ cameras. And I'm sure it's all great stuff. I'm absolutely sure it's all great stuff. But with just a little extra work, they could bring that cost down. They would actually know the technologies that they're putting in, so that they can then, if they want to move it to a different room, if they want to scale it, if they want to change it. I think that we need to really raise our expectations and our production values, but that doesn't mean spending tens of thousands of dollars. It means by being smart and taking time to watch YouTube videos, to talk to people who've done this before. Someone on Facebook is saying that small synagogues who are run by volunteers, they're really struggling. So, and I'm sure that's true in the church world also. James, let me let you jump in.
It's really interesting. My tip was going to be to set aside funds so that you're not reliant on volunteerism. But thinking of what you're saying, and I think of Tobias in relation to this, Tobias's setup when he started off was so simple, a couple of $100. And now that they've tested that out, they have a better feel for what they want and what they need. And they've invested thousands of dollars now. And that organization, that what you're talking of there, it really, that'll be the guidance to give them, would be for them to delve in themselves, to get their hands dirty so they know what they want, and that they'll be able to help to support themselves. Otherwise, they'll be completely reliant on somebody outside if any of those elements breaks, which it will. So it is important for them to find somebody who's going to take on that role, or to volunteer.
Yeah,
to figure out how to spend the money then.
Yeah, the Encyclopedia Judaicas the prayer books, the chairs in the sanctuary, all of the technological tools, and those are all technologies that we used to do this work in the past. They're still there, and there are new ones, and we don't have to like it, but we have to use the tools that are available to us. We have to learn about them, learn how to use them. You don't need the fancy, you don't need this thing. That's right. I mean, let's not be insane, but there are really great tools out there that can enrich our learning and our teaching and our praying and our connecting. And if we choose not to take advantage of them, we're really missing out. I'm keeping an eye on the time, and if it's okay, I just want to share one quick piece, and then I'll stop talking and we can all kind of come back together. Recently on Facebook, in one of the discussion groups, someone, I believe they were out in California, asked if other communities were thinking about going back to online services. Because I guess they were.
I saw that.
And I commented on it that I really hope that we reach a time when going back to online doesn't feel like a regression, when we can start thinking ahead and creating experiences that are both meaningful, inspirational, connecting, all of those different things, both online and on site. I don't pretend to know how to do that perfectly, but I do feel like in this moment, when none of us have any clue what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, none of us thought a month ago that we'd be where we are today. No one. I didn't. You know what? Sorry, I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I absolutely did not. Never could have seen this coming. So both because we don't know what the future is going to bring, and because even if we can all be in our synagogues forever and ever and ever going forward, even if there's never another pandemic, there are lots of people out there that we can reach, that we can touch, that we can inspire, who don't live near us, or who have disabilities and who aren't able to travel, or who just don't want to get out of bed in the morning, but might turn on their phone or their computer. This cannot be a response to, oi, we have to go back online. This has to be, oi, let's embrace this moment. Let's make sure that we're creating experiences now, today, looking forward, that are just as meaningful, just as entertaining, just as connecting. And they might be different. That's okay. They don't have to be the same experiences. In fact, I think often they won't be. But that's my tip, right? My tech tip is, let's start not seeing online digital experiences as regressive experiences, as less than. I understand that in certain cases they will be less than. That's natural. Sometimes it just is better to be physically together. I get that.
Well, they're different.
They're different. They're different. Yeah. James, please.
I couldn't agree with you more, David. And just thinking back to what Leo said about Web 3.0, while what we're doing may not be technically Web 3.0, it certainly is in terms of faith. Like if you think, we start with a Sermon on the Mount outdoors, then you go into buildings, and now we're going to our third venue, which is online. And that really is all it is. It's just a different location to deliver the new message, or to deliver a message.
I like that. That's the name of our next show, Faith 3.0.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting, James, is that you said, the mountain there's also a move back to the mountain, right? Mm. It's not as if we go from one spot to another spot, and then we forget about the things that came before. Lots of people are finding their spirituality at mountains, at by the ocean. So none of this is everybody move your services, move your classes online and close your sanctuaries. That is just not what this is about. This is about how can we best reach the most people and create the most immersive, engaging experiences for those people. So I just want to bring up that, let's see, funding to hire sound techs for special services is so critical. Getting the sound right is so difficult for lay people. Yeah, it really is. I mean, Marty has done whole shows about that, but it absolutely is.
And that was going to be actually, that's a good segue, because that was going to be the other thing that I wanted to bring up as new tech for the new year. And James mentioned it and Tobias mentioned it, is the ability to remote in, to do remote production. If you don't have people in your congregation that can or want to run audio or video for a stream, you don't have to. You can have somebody who is halfway across the country mixing and switching your stream by being able to remote into your equipment and run it from home.
Right. Absolutely. Right. There is a there is a crisis right now in the synagogue world of finding people to help run all of this. There is a crisis of that. Crisis is probably too harsh of a word, but there is a challenge, and there's also a financial challenge, because to get really good people to run sound, even remotely, costs money, and synagogues have not created budgets. As I'm sure the same is true for small churches. They just haven't. They have not yet created budgets that reflect that necessity. But that's why we have a new year, new budgets, new tech, new tools. I'm so grateful to all of you. I'm especially grateful to Leo and Tobias, who had to jump off. But Marty, it's so wonderful to have you here, and James and Michael. Marty, you have a show next week?
We have a show next week. Don't ask me what we're going to talk about yet, though.
Okay. Fair enough.
It'll be something good.
It always is. That's on Thursdays at, is it 8 Eastern or 7?
7 p.m. Eastern time.
Sorry, 7 p.m. Eastern. Great. And that's at Hybrid Ministries. And James and Michael, we'll start with you, James. Where can people find you if they want to learn more or see your work?
I haven't got anything really set up for today. But, I'll be back maybe again. And thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be part of the panel.
Oh, it's an honor having you here, James. Thank you. Michael, where can people find you?
michaelkyer.net.
Love it. Love it.
And
I'm
let's not
David.
forget to mention that people can reach all of us through the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum Facebook group, through the Dreaming Up Facebook group, and they can join the Discord for Hybrid Ministries.
Absolutely. And I'm David Paskey, a Torah Tech Guy, and really happy to be here with all of you, and just wishing everyone the happiest, healthiest, most spiritual of New Year's. We'll see you all later.